where today we're jumping into the Conversations with the Killer, the Jeffrey Dahmer tapes. This is episode 1. So this is going to be a full reaction from my second and third tier here on the YouTube platform, as well as my other platform, Patreon. So guys, please sign up to one of those platforms and help support the channel. Today, we're going to be wrapping up Jeffrey Dahmer. After this, there's only 3 episodes that we're going to be doing that they did. And I don't know if it's going to be covering the court cases that I was going to do reactions to, but if they do, I won't have to do the reactions. I do know that we did a poll, so we're going to be going into another, I think it's also a tape as well, the clown tape, dude. But it might be a little break. I probably will give myself maybe a week and then we'll go into that. But there are going to be other shows that you guys could suggest. Please add me onto Discord where you can find that link and that information down in the comment section. And definitely add me there on Discord where you guys could, throw out suggestions. Not even just for this content, but for overall content. I'm always looking for something new to watch. I have a bunch of shows on this channel and I need to wrap up a lot. So definitely comment down below, add me onto Discord, and we can talk there. With that being said, guys, let's jump into Jeffrey Dahmer tapes, episode 1, and find out exactly what Jeffrey Dahmer has got to give. Who are you?
I was a young lawyer at the time. I was in my 20s. I just moved to Milwaukee. I get this call from Jerry Boyle, my boss.
Jerry Boyle.
He said, look, we've got this new case. Jerry Boyle indicated, he said, this is somebody I had represented in the past, the Jeffrey Dahmer.
Oops.
It's my first job.
Good luck, sis.
It was a very small interview room. There was Jeff sitting in the corner of the table.
Even veteran police officers say this is among the strangest murder scenes they've ever witnessed.
Jeffrey Dahmer. Murder, mutilation, even cannibalism.
Biggest and most gruesome mass murder case in Milwaukee history.
Like Clarice Starling in Silence of the Lambs.
I just watched that.
In order to be a good defense attorney, you have to be non-judgmental.
Am I making you feel comfortable?
No. It has to be faced, so. Yeah. It's like trying to pull up a 2-ton stone out of a well.
If there's anything that can prepare anybody for that kind of carnage.
It was a quiet night, one of those summer nights where it was steamy. When I arrived, just seeing the faces of the police officers, that's when I realized that something big was happening. I ran into a police officer that I had known. Bobby Rao was his name. For real? And he looked at me, he shook his head and said, you bet, this is for real.
Investigating a homicide which occurred in the apartment building in 900 block of North 25th Street. The additional homicides that we're looking into.
And we asked him, begged him, could we get in? Could we take pictures inside Dahmer's apartment? Held onto the frame and leaned forward and looked inside the apartment. There was a bedroom off to the right and a bathroom. One thing that stood out more than anything else was a creepy lava lamp.
God knows what it was.
The night the Dahmer story broke, I was a reporter at the Milwaukee Sentinel at the time. Tina Burnside, who was a night cops reporter, calls. Pressure of having an editor breathing over your shoulder saying, I need that story like now. This is gonna be the biggest story to ever hit the city of Milwaukee.
Chief prosecutor in Milwaukee many years ago, before I became a defense lawyer, I talked to you about a client of yours. I said, who's that? He said, Jeffrey Dahmer. Represented him in 1988 for some sex crime. And I said, hold that thought. I got to call his father. I called Lionel Dahmer, and I told him what the reporter had told me.
First person that they brought me in to see was Detective Murphy.
All he said to me is, why don't you just shoot me now? Reassured him that whatever he could tell me wouldn't reflect on him or wouldn't make me like him or dislike him anymore.
I was a lieutenant assigned to the homicide unit. He was able to recall every detail of these homicides.
As I recall, Jeff was a little drunk at the time. He said, Wendy, they found so much in my apartment. The gig is up.
Knew Dahmer didn't have a defense. So I said to him, what do you want me to do? You can get a good psychiatrist to come and talk to you, plead you not guilty by reason of mental illness. His job was to get enough information to give to the doctors to be able to answer their question.
Wow.
I wondered why I was compelled to do the murders. Murdering someone and disposing of them right away gives no great lasting pleasure.
Jeff, wanting to identify all the victims, this was very unique. I killed, this is how I killed, and this was why.
Fantasizing. It always started with fantasizing, and then eventually it seemed the fantasies came to be.
Fantasy world to degrees and in places that most of us would never even conceive of. I've been asked if there was, in my view, a defense of insanity here.
Triggered it all. I wish I could give you a good straightforward answer on that. Twisted thinking. I haven't been thinking normally for years.
1965.
There were some pictures I saw of him when he was younger with his dad Lionel, and it seemed very normal scientist, and he was furthering his own education. Wasn't like he was sexually abused or beaten. The one thing that Jeffrey did tell me, constant bickering between his parents.
What was the problem there as you were growing up? Seemed to get along, especially on my mom's side. Any violence? Just the slapping and hitting. Whose side were you on? I was trying not to be on anyone's side.
If there was any insanity or any peculiar things about those family members. Joyce's side, I think there was some alcoholism in her family, but there's alcoholism in a lot of families.
Jeffrey had a brother who was born when Jeffrey was about 6.
He was already alone a lot.
I don't think he really had a large group of friends. I never really saw other people come over. We could just take our bicycles and just zoom right across the street, or just play ball, go sledding.
How long had you known at that point that you're homosexual?
Since I was 13, I'd say.
Knew that it would be contrary to the wishes of his father and mother.
Just kissing, laying together.
As he got older, Jeffrey became walled up emotionally from his peers, his teachers.
Served as the elected district attorney of Milwaukee County. During the years of Dahmer's murder time, he was a senior in high school. He started having fantasies, sexual fantasies, having sex with a person who was, in effect, completely submissive to him, to violently force someone to submit to him.
He fantasized about a jogger that came by frequently.
Didn't know how to approach him, didn't know what to do, so he decided that he would knock him unconscious in the woods and have sex with him while he was unconscious.
It's the well-toned, athletic male body. That's what he wanted.
Hid behind a tree. That particular jogger did not come by, so he abandoned that idea.
And he was about to do it, so it's a little different than the show.
Everyone, a very gruesome discovery in Milwaukee overnight.
Recited, shocked the anchor people back at the station.
An apartment full of pieces of people. Men who were apparently killed by another man. Bodies were dismembered. So clearly, literally piecing together the information is going to be difficult to figure out who the victims are in this case.
Why didn't you ask me a question? I said, we were so stunned. We couldn't think of a question.
Shocked, sir?
People were shocked. They were awed, and they couldn't turn away.
You can't imagine the enormity of it all. It was anxiety.
When did your parents separate?
When I was 18.
That trust made all the difference in the world.
They had their problems. Just tried to find some happiness my own way.
July 1991.
Parents were going through a divorce, and Dahmer was alone at the home in Bath, Ohio.
His father out, he moved out to a motel. Dahmer never used the word abandoned by his parents, although I think that he might have been familiar with that feeling.
You never talked to her again?
Right.
How did it make you feel at that time?
Depressed. I saw this guy hitchhiking. I thought it would be nice to have someone around to talk with.
Then Hicks was hitchhiking to a rock concert.
Jeffrey was always interested in was the torso, was the driving force of his attraction.
That's what attracted me. The physique.
Even Hicks was hitchhiking and he didn't have a shirt on. He said to me, he said, "This is unbelievable. This was the fantasy I had."
See if I can get this guy to come back to the house. Said, look, I've got some beer and pot back at the house. Do you want to come back and share that with me?
You hadn't done anything with him, did you?
No. I just got the sense that he wasn't interested in that at all after a while, talking with him.
At some point, Stephen Hicks indicated to Jeffrey, look, I gotta get going. I can't stay here any longer. Jeff didn't want to let him go.
He did have a desire to control the lustful feelings.
Dahmer took a barbell from a weight set and hit Stephen Hicks over the head with it.
I don't know exactly why he hadn't, except that I wanted to stay with him longer.
Jeffrey uses the barbell to strangle Stephen.
The reason it was that I was actually doing it to another human being. There was a feeling of excitement, control, but mingled with a lot of fear. Under the house, in the crawl space area.
Did you go back and look at him now?
I did, yeah. One sort of morbid curiosity as to what a dead person looked like.
What am I gonna do with the body? How am I gonna get rid of this?
They're dismembering them and everything. There's something knowing when I remember taking the legs off and then the arms and the head.
Did you touch anything?
I probably did. Liver, heart.
Masturbated to the body parts.
15 years old by using him to masturbate?
Got an exciting feeling out of doing that.
He got the most satisfaction in what he did with the body afterwards, in an attempt to try and get him through the insanity plea.
I was an expert witness in the Jeffrey Dahmer case. Diagnosis of Mr. Dahmer was necrophilia, very much aroused by having sex with individuals after they've passed away.
3 o'clock in the morning, he decided to dispose of the body by taking it to a ravine.
Into a garbage bags and was stopped by a police officer because he apparently crossed the median line. The officer took his flashlight and flashed into the back, and there was the garbage bag with Hicks' dead body in there. Parents are breaking up, and I'm alone and couldn't sleep, so I thought I'd get rid of the garbage. Dahmer knew what was at stake, and Dahmer was cool enough to say, no, just garbage, on the way to dump the garbage.
He knew that he could manipulate. He knew that he could make a statement to somebody and get away with it. He went out over the bridge, over the river, and threw any other personal items.
Pretty much by myself for a couple months.
How many times a day would you speak with him?
Oh, maybe once or twice a week.
So much food in the refrigerator. Alcohol bottles were around. His father was quite concerned, so they moved back in.
You said you went to Ohio State?
For 3 months, still on drinking there, so grades weren't very good.
He was drinking very heavily, essentially flunked out by his dad and stepmother. He would go into the Army.
Being able to identify the organs through his training in the military.
Heavily into the that's why I had to move back to Ohio.
Bags with Stephen Hicks' body. Those bags were still there.
Jeffrey Dahmer spread out the remains of Steve Hicks, the fine young man that disappeared into thin air. For 13 years, that family had no idea what had happened to their son.
I was troubled about that. Indecision over whether I should confess to it. Well, I knew how horribly wrong it was. I never wanted to have anything like that ever happen again.
Well, that was a fail.
He says my parents don't have any knowledge of my activities and understand how it could do this to someone.
They feel horrible for the tragedy that has happened. His father, Lionel, is just a marvelous man, and he is hurting as badly as anyone.
I did not realize just how sick he was. I will, as I always have, stand by him in my thoughts and prayers.
Detectives allowed him to smoke and to have as much coffee as he wanted as well. I think without those, we wouldn't have gotten all the story.
Analyzing it shows me just how warped my thinking was.
There were times that I felt like a mother to him. There were times that I felt like he was my brother.
I could carry on a long-term relationship like where I was staying.
His father suggested moving in with Grandma, which he did.
She said she didn't want to get involved in his activities.
That's Grandma.
I had moved up to here up in Wisconsin, helped my grandma out.
A place that would be healthy for you. She's getting older. She needs the help. Jeffrey told me that he loved his grandmother very much.
Environment in which Lionel Dahmer grew up in.
She was very supportive. and she loved Jeff.
There was the yard work and various chores.
It isn't clear to me if she knew his sexuality. If she'd known that, then she would have been quite judgmental.
He told me, he said, I don't like being gay.
Fabulous.
I really didn't get rid of the homosexual feelings that I had. I started going to church with grandma on a regular basis.
Would read the Bible. They, spent a lot of time together at dinners.
Denomination issue.
Protestant.
Oh, super strict.
Tried to create surrogates to not take a human life.
I was walking around Southridge and saw this mannequin undressed. Got a taxi back home and stored it in the closet at Grandma's house. Dressing it up and undressing it. Pretending it was real.
Use it to lie with it and masturbate, which wasn't as good as a person.
After a week or two, Grandma happened to stumble across it. Asked me, what was it, where did I get it? And I gave her some story that I picked it up in the basement and smashed it up and threw it out in the garbage.
On for 3 days and later testified at his trial. I do think that he sought to find another solution for a time, trying to avoid gay sex because of his religious inhibitions. Of a man dropping a note in the library offering him a blowjob in the bathroom.
Last thing I expected, that's an awful, feeble attempt to get me to stop.
Took compulsion to rest and we went to church with Grandma and came back done, didn't it?
That's what triggered it, I guess.
See what happens when you want a blowjob?
Was a mixer at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory.
I just had a job that paid halfway decent. And I could look forward to free time when I where the gay bars were and started going to them. Having complete control over and to be able to do it as I please. Little by little I started falling away. I gave up trying to resist.
People in the bar said, I remember him. Well, of course we all did. Milwaukee's only this big. It wasn't as exclusive as Chicago and New York. For a city like Milwaukee, we had a good time. You could be yourself.
Tell me serious.
You had freedom. Bars had beautiful music. People always wanted to dance. We were all just coming into who we are. A lot of those people were beautiful souls.
During that time, I was also a columnist and journalist in the Milwaukee area. Demographics, the customer base, the locations, these were not brightly lit streets. That lack of transparency really made it easy for someone like Dahmer to be a predator.
Gay men often rely on the cover of darkness to hide their second life.
A running tradition of the gay community was the bathhouse. In the 1970s and 1980s, they were really strictly being used as social spaces for gay men to meet each other for sex.
See somebody you want, you do what you do. Because it was anonymous. We're just trying to have sex.
It was a second floor, only accessible by the alley. Unfortunately, it was also a popular place with Jeffrey Dahmer.
He wanted to be completely in charge. So Dahmer started bringing drugs into the bathhouse.
Just lay around with them without feeling pressure to do anything that they wanted to do. Enjoy them the way I wanted to. I wanted to do what I wanted. So I didn't care.
Lie together for a prolonged period, which was a primary wish he had.
And they were engaging in sexual acts against their will.
When he overdrugged someone, and when the guy with difficulty waking him up, the bath owner, had to summon medical help after the word got out, don't let Dahmer in your bathhouse.
Essentially just told the bathhouse operator to notify them if he returned and keep him off the property.
As a marked man, he wasn't able to go there anymore.
Did any of that satisfy you? I mean, as far as really getting any true satisfaction?
I did.
9 years after the murder of Stephen Hicks.
He met Stephen Toomey, and he wanted to spend the night with him, room over at the Ambassador Hotel.
Oh, that's that guy.
Drank a great deal. Following morning, Jeff ended up waking up.
Totally blacked out.
Yeah.
You had no idea that you had done anything?
No, not until I woke up in the morning.
Yeah, his face was bloody.
Shocked. Sorry that it happened because I had no intention of anything like that happening. Apparently I had beaten him with my fists on the chest.
Everywhere. He said he was in an alcoholic blackout, but what his deepest desire was still came out.
He went out and went to a luggage store and got a big trunk, Mr. Toomey into the trunk.
He then had a cab driver come and pick him up. In fact, Dahmer said the cab driver even said, hey, you must have a dead body in here. The suitcase was so heavy. To the grandmother's house and secretly dispose of his body.
Toomey grew up in Michigan's Upper Peninsula in the small town of Ontonagon.
He was a real quiet kid, and that's how I know him. He was just real quiet.
The last time anyone saw him was in the fall of 1987.
I believed what Dahmer said because he had no reason not to tell us the truth. It was Dahmer's statement and putting together in great detail. I met with the family up in Upper Michigan. Son went down to Milwaukee to get work, to try to be in a more urban area.
How did you feel then after that time with the ambassador?
Horrifying.
Did you try to lose control?
Yeah, I knew I had
1978, the slaying of Stephen Hicks, to November of 1987, the slaying of Stephen Toomey.
The ambassador did something. It triggered something on
Toomey murder was a turning point for him.
He finally decided, I'm losing this fight with myself.
Gave me a stick of pleasure. It dominated my thoughts doing these things.
Passed on the street as a very normal person. He didn't look scary.
Except Dahmer knew that the serial slayer was loose in our city.
Just gave up, became like a killing machine who was absolutely, totally out of control.
He was stronger than anything else. Desires were bestial, obviously.
Oh, ma'am. No, ma'am. Well. So this is a different perspective on everything. Things were a little bit different than a TV show, as it was stated here. The hotel was the same. Us meeting the grandma was the same. Him cutting the pieces up at the grandma's house. I'm saying it like it's normal. At the grandma's house was the same. The father and mother, to see them actually on that footage, they looked normal. But the scariest part was the ending. I'm not gonna lie. The scariest part of the ending when they said that Jeffrey Dahmer could be like your neighbor. That could be somebody you just walk by, not knowing that they have this situation, that they could be killers, that is the scariest thing. I want to stay home. That's why I don't want to mess with people. You see, I'll tell you my dreams and aspirations. I want to have my own place, far away from everybody else, and I don't want to piss anybody off because people could be cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Like, I don't know. I'm completely scared. Oh my God, that really scares me. Actually, ow, that really hurt. I hurt myself. But this actually gives me more Jeeper Creepers and fear than actually watching this show. Maybe because this is real, and Jeffrey Dahmer sounds just like Evan Peters, which is even more crazy. But maybe because this is real, I'm just like super creeped out and I just want to go to sleep. So that's probably what I'm gonna do. I hope you enjoyed this reaction, because I don't know what I look like on this reaction, but I hope you enjoyed it. We're gonna be getting into the second episode. I'm gonna take a few days off. I hope you guys don't mind. And then we'll get back into the second episode later on. Some way, somehow, during this week. Pray for me, y'all. Pray for me. With that being said, guys, if you've seen this reaction, realize you are not subscribed. Hit subscribe button, so please like and share this content because it does wonders for this channel. And I'll see you all next time on Today's Upgrade.